Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the 4 Pillars of Health with Kevin Davis. My name is Kevin Davis and I'm an online health coach, and I help guys lose weight, gain muscle, and optimize their life. Today we're going to talk about 5 strategies that you can implement so that you can live a longer, healthier life. Now, I want to preface by saying this by always, only God knows how long we're going to live. But what we want to do is while we're here and we're living, we want to optimize our life, and we're going to talk about that today. Now, the things we're going to talk about are not just things that's going to help you, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. They're going to be things that it's going to help you now. It's going to make you feel better. And if you have those 2 things in mind, feeling better now and living a longer, healthier life, that can be motivation for you to start implementing some of these things that we're going to talk about. Now, the things we talk about is not necessarily going to make you live longer. Like I said, God has a place where there's only so many days that we have here on earth. But what we want to do is those days that we are living, we want to be able to do the things that we want to do. I always use this as an example. Think of a triangle versus a rectangle. So a triangle is you're born, age 40s or 50s, you're at your peak performance, and then you start declining over the last 10 to 30 years of your life. You just not be able to do the things you want to do. What we want to do is be more like a rectangle. And what I mean by that is you're born, you live, you go past that 50-year mark, and you go out to age 80, whatever it may be, and then those last year or so, those are the times that our health declines, and then it's a sharp drop off, and then we die. So we're not gradually decreasing. So if you're like me, I've seen a lot of people, and I see this in my office a lot, is just the gradual decline of people's health over the last 10 or 20 years of their life. They can't do the things that they want to do. They don't have an energy. They don't have the strength. They don't have the stamina, those type of things. I don't want to be like that, and I'm sure you don't want to be like that. But the thing about it is if you don't start doing things now, you're not going to achieve those results later on. So when you're thinking about your health choices and you're thinking about, should I exercise? I'm getting tired of this diet or whatever it may be. What I want you to start thinking about is, how do I want the last 10 years of my life to be? Do I want to be in a gradual decline? Do I want to be that person that is having to go to the doctor many times, different specialists? Am I that person that is disrupting my kid's life? They're having to take care of me. They're having to come over and do things at my house. Take me to doctor's appointments, taking them away from their family and their kids. I don't want to be like that. So I want the last 10 years of my life, no matter when that is, to be fruitful, to be productive, and to do the things that I want to do. Now, I'm not naive thinking that, when I'm 70, I'm going to be able to do the same things that I did when I'm 30. Obviously not. We all have a gradual decline, and that's understood. But you've seen this, and I've seen this as well too, is there's many people that you look at, they're 70, 80 years old, and they're out doing things. I see people all the time. I listen to people on podcasts a lot too. They are actually getting better as they get older. They're lifting weights. They're doing, playing tennis. They're doing those things. And it's because they've made a decision. They've made a decision to say, I'm going to start making some changes in my life. They saw that the pain points of suffering later on were greater than the pain points of not making changes now. So if you can get to that point where you can see, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to have those feelings. I want to be able to play with my grandkids. I want to be able to take them to Disney World or whatever it may be. That is where I think that we need to be in our mindset. Now, the problem is, we're all not all alike. Now, there's a lot of things that we all need to do. We need to sleep better. We need to eat nutritious. We need to stay away from sugar, processed foods. But the problem is as you get to that point, where you're not getting exactly what you want, it becomes individualized. And, as me as a health coach, this is where I step in. Most people don't come to me if they've never tried to lose weight. They try to do it on their own. They try to Google it. They try to look it up on, podcasts or YouTubes or something like that. Then when I get stuck, then that's when I see them. So we can all probably agree on some things that we need to do as a whole. But if you wanted to pinpoint and be able to maximize your health, you need that last little bit. And a lot of times you need some help and direction with that. So the one thing that I think is important as we go through this process is you got to start tracking what you're doing. If you don't track what you do, you don't know the direction that you're going to go. You need to track your foods. Now, do you need to track them all the time? Probably not. If you're like me, a creature of habit, I do the same things over and over. But there'll be times where I'll track my food for a whole month just to make sure I know where I'm at. Are you tracking your exercise? If you look at my logs, I try to track every exercise that I do. I have logs back for probably 5 or 6 years. And what I want to see is, am I getting stronger? Or at least am I maintaining my strength? Because if I can at least maintain my strength, that's a win. Because if you don't know, you probably lose about 1% of your muscle mass as you age every year. So if you're not maintaining it, that's a gradual loss of muscle mass that you don't see. But if you look back 10 years, you can see there's a big difference. Are you tracking your sleep? I currently use an Oura ring. I see how I'm sleeping. I don't do 100% with Oura ring. I don't put all my eggs in that basket because I want to know how I feel. I think that's important as well. But I can kind of see if I'm getting off track. It helps me identify, okay, I really need to make some adjustments. And then tracking labs. We have a new program, and I'll talk about that at the end of the podcast, is we have a new program that has a dashboard, and it has to do with longevity. It has to do with tracking 10 areas so that you can see which areas are you deficient in, and you can correct those things. But even with the labs, you can't go by all the numbers. You got to go by how you feel. So that's important as well, too. So what are the 5 strategies for longevity? One, and this is old news to some of you guys, but maybe if you've listened for the first time, nutrition. That's number one for as far as my pillar. You have to know what you're eating, and you have to focus on protein. I think that as far as a longevity tool, if you're concentrating on protein, it does so many things. It helps with your muscle mass. It helps with as far as your strength, because if you're not getting enough protein, obviously you can't build muscle like you should. So, and it does so many other things. It has to interacts with some hormones. It makes you feel full. So I think if we go back to, there's so much out there as far as what is it I need to eat? If you just focus on protein first and you nail that down, then we can adjust the other macros like your fats and your carbs. So with your metabolic system, it is basically how your body uses and stores energy. So if we focus on protein and we have that down packed, then what we can do is we can look at the carbs and the fat and start kind of like adjusting those dials. I think about it as dials. Some people may need to have 40% fat and 60% carbs from the rest of their calories. Some people may need the opposite. A lot of it has to do with your labs. So going back and tracking your labs. Are you insulin resistant or are you not insulin resistant? Then we can adjust those macros depending on your health. So it's important that we still see that we need to have those foods, but we need to adjust those depending on yours. Limiting processed foods for nutrition. Obviously, that is something that is just universal. I just was listening to a podcast this morning talking about processed foods and how what was the cereal's name? It was from Kellogg's company. But, compared to the cereal they make in America versus the cereal that they sell in Canada, there's a big difference as far as the red dyes and processed foods that goes into those cereals. It's amazing that the cereal that they make and sell, or that they sell in Canada, they make in the United States. So they could make that cereal and sell it in the United States, but they don't. A couple of reasons is probably a little bit cheaper, and the guy on the podcast was talking about pennies per box, so that's not that much. So I don't really think it's a cost issue, but I think that the issue that they have with that, I'm getting off track here, but the issue that they have with that is that the natural dyes that they use and they sell in Canada, they're not as bright. If you use the artificial dyes, which are what they sell in America, they're more bright. So if you're looking at kids, the more bright the food is, the more attractive. So there's so many things that's being marketed out there that shows that, hey, we need to take a step back and look at what are the foods that we're eating. So limiting processed foods, back to my or pillars of health, and limiting sugar. The other thing you need to do is, when do you eat? Are you a candidate for fasting? I think fasting is awesome. I think it does a lot of things for us. When I first started my journey, a decade ago, I fasted on a regular basis. I don't fast so much now. I've corrected my underlying insulin resistance per my labs. So I'm able to see about, okay, I've moved past that. My body has changed. Maybe I don't need to fast as much. But there is something called autophagy. Autophagy is when your body kind of eats itself, the cells, that kind of cleans everything up so that you're able to not have those things that's laying around that can cause detrimental effects. So I think some targeted fasting for everybody is probably a good idea. Obviously, if you're taking insulin, if you have other medical conditions, you need to look at talk to your doctor about that. But I think some kind of fasting is important. The other thing with the nutrition is, how much do you eat? It's not just about the type of food, but it's how many calories are you taking in. Are you restricting the calories because you need to lose weight? Currently, right now, I'm trying to add calories because I want to gain muscle. So it depends on where you're at. It's not necessarily your weight that you're really concerned about. It's your fat versus your protein ratio in your body. It's okay. If you stay the same, but you increase your muscle, you may have not lost any weight, become metabolically more healthy. So those are the things that we need to look at. So with me, what I'm doing right now is obviously I'm restricting my sugars and processed foods. Now, am I 100% with that? No, I don't think anybody is, but I really try to limit it. And if you look at my meals, probably 90% of my meals are right on where they need to be. I do occasionally fasting. Sometimes I do a 24-hour fast. Sometimes I'll do a 16-hour fast. Just depends. A lot of it depends on if I worked out that day or not. When the days I'm working out, I try not to fast as much. When the days I'm not working out, so maybe I'll add some fasting on that time as well. And then I focus on my protein. It's really hard. I try to get between 150 to 200 grams of protein. It's really hard to get that. And if you're not tracking it, you have no idea. Most people that I talk to, when I talk about protein, they usually are thinking, I'm getting enough protein. I have them start tracking it, and it's usually commonly around half of what they should be doing. So what do you need to do about nutrition? You need to think about your current metabolic state. Are you metabolically healthy? Do you have underlying insulin resistance? You need to identify these things because that's what's going to give you the direction you need to go for your nutrition. And the other thing is, what's your goal? Are you wanting to lose fat? I don't want to say lose weight because we want to lose fat. Are you wanting to gain muscle? Or you want to get stronger? Like for me right now, I'm going to get stronger. I want to add muscle, so I'm trying to focus on the protein. The other thing you have to think about is I need to be patient. If you look at me, it's been a 10, 12-year journey so far, probably even more than that. So you have to be patient with this. You can't just expect to do this for, a month, 2 months, 6 months, and get the results that you want to get. You just have to be patient and you have to be consistent. You have to be willing to change if it's not working. And that's where the frustration comes in with a lot of people is they try something, it doesn't work, and they quit. Well, something's going to work for you. You just have to figure it out. And that's where I help with my clients is I help them figure out what do they need to do. And then the other thing I think with nutrition too is you need to monitor how you feel. Are you having more energy? Are you sleeping better? Are you having less cravings? is your GI symptoms better? You know, a lot of times if we're having GI symptoms, it's usually a result of the foods that we're eating. So if we can adjust those foods, then we can adjust how our GI feels. And then the other thing I think you need to do with nutrition, and I really recommend this, and I do this with all my one-on-one clients, is consider a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. It can identify problem areas and how foods affect you personally. I think by far it's probably the best tool to evaluate and to change habits, because you get immediate feedback. You eat something, you see what your sugar is, you see how it's affecting you, and it gives you the knowledge that you need to have to help motivate you to get to make those changes that you need to do. So second pillar is exercise, you know, where to focus. And really it depends on where you're at. If you've never been to a gym and I give you an exercise program that's going to make you go to the gym 3 or 4 days a week and you don't even know how to maneuver or lift or do exercises in the gym, you're not going to do it. So you have to see, where am I at with this? And I think the first thing we need to do is just move. And what I mean by that is just walk. You know, if you have about 1,700 steps, that's about a mile, and most people can do that in 15 minutes. So if you add 10 minutes of walking 3 times a day, you've added 3,000 steps. So that's 10 minutes of walking. You can approximately get 3,000 steps. Now, do you have 10 minutes in the morning? Yes, you do. If you don't think you do, you can get up 10 minutes earlier, get your walking in. You can walk after lunch. You can walk after work. You can walk in the evening time. You can make it a routine. So if you just start moving, if you're doing no type of exercise whatsoever, just start moving. Now, if you've listened to me before, I think strength training is the primary goal. But if you're not even moving and you're not even doing those things, I can't get you into the gym to start doing that until you become more active with it. And that leads me to the second thing is I want you to progress to strength training. You know, it's intimidating. I've been there before. I used to not go to the gym because I'd walk in, just like any other guy. I'd walk into the gym and say, oh man, these guys are benching like 225 pounds. I can't get that off the bar. Or they're deadlifting, 300. They're squatting 200. There's no way I could do that. And I was intimidated and I didn't go into the gym. But eventually I got to the point where I just didn't care. And that was when I was about 40. So if you're younger than this and you're intimidated, don't be intimidated. If you're older, don't be intimidated. The thing about the gym, and the thing that I found with most people in the gym, is probably the most willingest place. If you are there sincerely wanting help, man, there are so many people there that can help you with your form to make sure you're not getting hurt, those type of things. So if you need a plan, that's what I'm here for. I can help you with that as well too. But the thing that we need to progress to is the strength. The one thing that I've never heard, and I forget who said this, I wasn't me who come up with this, is they've never heard anybody say they wish they had less muscle as they got older. Most of us, we need more muscle. And that's one thing that we notice when we're getting older, we lose this strength. You need to do the strength training probably 2 to 5 times a week, depending on where you're at. If you're just starting, 2 days a week is plenty enough. If you're a seasoned person who works out, 5 days a week is great too. And the third thing we need to do as far as exercise is aerobic activity. And that's a zone 2 in a high intensity interval training, which is probably a zone 5. So zone 2, where you're just doing a steady state, if you could do that 2 to 4 times a week, probably erring on the lower end of that. And zone 5, if you just did it 1 day a week, where you're really getting that heart rate up. And if you don't know what those are things that we can explain to you if you ever want to have a call with us as well. The third thing we need to concentrate is sleep. Consistency is the key. And what I mean by consistency is going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. And, if you're like me, it's really hard. On weekends, you want to stay up a little bit later, sleep a little longer, and I do that. But I try not to err more than an hour of change when I go to bed and when I get up, even on weekends. So, I think it's important that you have that consistency. It has to do with your circadian rhythm. There's something called a 3-2-1 method. So before you go to bed, no food before 3 hours before you go to bed, no working 2 hours before you go to bed, and no screens an hour before you go to bed. So if you have trouble going to sleep, try to follow that. It's very simple to do, and it really helps as far as getting your sleep and then keeping your sleep through the night. The other thing is limiting caffeine. A lot of of times I see people, I don't know how they do it. They drink coffee or have a Mountain Dew or whatever, and then they go to sleep. There's no way I could do that. I have to start limiting my caffeine probably around 2 or 3 o'clock. There are some genetic testing that can show you whether you're a slow or fast metabolizer of caffeine. But I think you can kind of probably figure that out on your own if you kind of start tracking what you're doing. Again, I use an Oura ring with my sleep. It really gives me just an idea as far as how I'm sleeping. Make sure I'm consistent with it, because I can look back over last week, last month, last year, and compare to 2 years ago. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? And then the other things that I think is important is a cool, dark room. That's so important as far as maximizing your sleep. And obviously no alcohol. A lot of people use alcohol to go to sleep, but the problem is they wake up once the alcohol is burnt, and it changes some things in your body, and you have more disrupted sleep throughout the nighttime. And again, this is not medical advice, but this is something that can help some people. Magnesium threonate does seem to help with sleep. So that's something to consider, but again, talk to your doctor about that. Fourth thing we're going to talk about is prayer. Because I think with prayer, we're in a busy world. We're always stressed. We're always going to the next thing. And if you're not, that's the way I am. And I'm sure you're probably feeling that as well. But you're always doing something. There's always the next thing. You're always on the go. So we need to get to the point where we incorporate prayer. And it has to do with some things that happens in your body with your parasympathetic and sympathetic system. But you don't have to know all that. Just know that biblically it tells us that we need to pray. And when we pray, we have to slow down. We have to seek the Father. We have to seek advice from Him. And if we really pray, we take some time to stop and try to listen to the things He's trying to tell us. And for me, just to be honest with you, I've had to force myself to do that because I'm on the go. And if you're like me, when you're saying prayer, sometimes your mind kind of wanders, and then you have to keep going back. But it's something that we learn, I think, is something that is not just easily done, but it's something being consistent with. And I think that's the key, is being consistent with it. And then I pray when I first get up in the morning, after I do my Bible study. And the thing that I found also is important is to take time through the day. You're not just praying at one time, but if you find yourself getting stressed and things like that, use that time for prayer to seek His guidance, to seek His will, and understand that God doesn't get in a rush. There's nowhere in the Bible where He's rushing from one place to another. Everything's in His control and His timing. And if we realize that, I think we're going to be so much better off. And the fifth thing we're going to talk about as far as like a strategy for longevity is your labs. Now, these are the 10 things that are addressed if you want to become either a one-on-one group coaching or just use our dashboard and with monthly Zoom calls. These are the things that we address. We address sleep, cognition, fitness, hormone balance, metabolism, recovery, endurance, gut health, heart health, inflammation. There's 47 different labs that we use to address these 10 areas. So I think it's important that we look at this and see, okay, where are we deficient at? It may be a deficiency in vitamin D. It may be a deficiency in your A1C, which is your 3-month sugar, or it may be a deficiency in your insulin levels too high. And then with this dashboard, the thing that is really neat with this is it gives you strategies to improve whatever you're deficient in. And it gives you some articles about it and some scientific papers if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole with that. But with this right here, for the lab marker, you get explanation, how to improve it, and articles to learn more. So if you're somebody who's really wanting to improve their health, if they're really wanting to increase their longevity to where they're, going back to that rectangle to where you're living a longer, healthier life right before you die, those are the things that this labs will address. It also, you can have the added benefit of marking your inner age. There's 18 blood markers that kind of gives you what your inner age is. If you're 55, is your inner age above 55, which is not good, or below 55, which is good, which means you're doing the things the right way. So If you're ever interested in that, I would love to have a conversation with you, and I can actually show you what the dashboard looks like, so that you can kind of like get an idea as far as like if you would want to become a client and let us help you address your longevity. So hopefully that's helped. Hopefully that's given you some information as far as like longevity, the 5 strategies for longevity. And I really think that it's something that needs to be looked at. I think sometimes we just go through life and we're not really concentrating and doing the things on a focused basis to get the results as we want. We just try one thing or another, or we just kind of go through life saying it doesn't really matter, or there's nothing I can change. And I think all that's false. So let me turn my attention to catechism. What does the 5th commandment teach us? It says to love and obey our parents. Now, with our parents, I'm a parent. I have parents. I think that it's very important that we look at this and we take this to heart, because it is a commandment. We need to love and obey our parents. And as we get older, it's not necessarily to where we agree with everything that they say, but we have to respect them. We have to respect who they are, because they're our parents. So I encourage you, as we go through the catechisms, especially through the 10 commandments, take a look at them. They're something that's time tested. They're not the things that are restrictive, but the things that gives us the liberty to enjoy God. And if we do these things, we're going to enjoy Him on a much deeper level. So hopefully that's helped, guys. I look forward to our next podcast, seeing you guys here. And remember, be fit and be faithful. If there's anything I can do for you, please reach out.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. No patient-provider relationship is implied or established. This podcast in no way represents the practice of medicine. The information given is to be used at the listener's own risk. Please consult your provider before making any changes, as the contents of this podcast is no substitution for your provider's instruction.